They judged her by her hijab, but she wore the heart of a hero. The moving truck rumbled down the tree-lined street of Willow Creek, its massive frame a jarring contrast to the neat, manicured lawns and pastel-colored houses that lined the cul-de-sac. Inside the cab, Amina Khalid gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, a mixture of trepidation and fierce hope swirling within her. Beside her, 7-year-old Lila, her daughter, pressed her nose against the window, her small face alight with curiosity. "Mama, look! That house has a swing set," Layla chirped, pointing a tiny finger. Amina smiled, a soft, weary curve of her lips beneath the gentle frame of her hijab. "It does, Habibti. Maybe you'll make a new friend who likes to swing." Willow Creek was everything they had dreamed of, or at least everything Amina had meticulously researched. Good schools, low crime, green spaces, and a quiet, suburban charm that promised a fresh start. After years in the bustling city, Amina, a nurse by profession, had yearned for a slower pace, a place where Layla could truly blossom, away from the constant noise and hurried anonymity. This house, a charming colonial with a welcoming porch and a sprawling backyard, had felt like fate. It was a leap of faith, a significant financial commitment, but Amina, with her steady income and meticulous savings, had made it happen. She was ready to build a new life, to plant new roots. As the truck pulled into their driveway, a few curtains twitched in the neighboring houses. Amina noticed, but dismissed it. New neighbors always drew curiosity. She took a deep breath, adjusted her hijab, and stepped out into the warm summer air, ready to embrace her new community. The first few weeks in Willow Creek were a delicate dance of hope and subtle rebuff. Amina, armed with her grandmother's famous shortbread recipe, baked batch after batch of cookies, carefully arranged them in wicker baskets, and set out to introduce herself. She knocked on doors, offering a warm smile and a simple, heartfelt greeting. "Hi, I'm Amina Khalid. We just moved in next door. This is my daughter, Layla. We wanted to say hello and bring you some homemade cookies." Her voice was soft, melodic, her English impeccable, tinged with the faintest, almost imperceptible lilt of her Somali heritage. The responses varied, but the underlying sentiment was often the same. Some neighbors offered polite, tight smiles, accepting the cookies with a hesitant "thank you" before quickly closing their doors. Others, like the young couple across the street, simply waved from their porch, their faces unreadable, and didn't approach. A few, like Mrs. Albright 2 houses down, mumbled something about being busy and took the basket without making eye contact. The warmth Amina offered seemed to dissipate into the quiet, manicured air of Willow Creek, absorbed by an invisible barrier. The stairs were the hardest to ignore. When she walked Lila to the park, or pushed their grocery cart through the local supermarket, she felt eyes on her. Not overtly hostile, but curious, wary, sometimes openly judgmental. The hijab, a symbol of her faith and identity, seemed to act as a magnet for these gazes, drawing attention she neither sought nor welcomed. She'd catch snippets of hushed conversations, heads turning away quickly when she met their eyes. It was a subtle, insidious form of isolation, 1,000 tiny cuts that chipped away at her initial optimism. Layla felt it, too. She'd skip to the park, her bright spirit undimmed, only to find the swing sets empty, or the other children suddenly engrossed in a game that didn't include her. She'd come home, her small shoulders slumped, her usually cheerful voice quiet. "Mama, why won't anyone play with me?" she'd ask, her lower lip trembling. Amina would hug her tight, her heart aching. Sometimes, Habibati, people just need a little time to get used to new faces. Keep smiling. Keep being kind. They'll see. But even as she said the words, a knot of doubt tightened in her own stomach. Was it just new faces? Or was it something else? Her next-door neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Baker, were the most prominent examples of this chilling reception. Their house, a pristine white colonial with perfectly trimmed hedges, stood directly adjacent to Amina's, separated only by a low decorative fence. Mr. Baker, a burly man with a perpetually stern expression, would often be seen meticulously tending his lawn. Mrs. Baker, thin and sharp-featured, would water her prize-winning roses. Amina had approached them with her warmest smile and her best cookies on her very first day. "Hello, I'm Amina, your new neighbor," she'd offered, holding out the basket. Mr. Baker had merely grunted, his eyes flicking from her face to her hijab, then to Layla, before settling on the cookies with a suspicious glare. Mrs. Baker had taken the basket with a stiff arm, her lips barely moving as she muttered, "Thank you." Neither had offered a hand in greeting, nor a welcoming word. From that day on, their interactions were minimal. Mr. Baker would stop mowing his lawn when Amina was in her yard, watching her with an unreadable, almost hostile intensity. Mrs. Baker would quickly retreat indoors if Amina stepped out. Their silence was louder than any shouted insult, their suspicion a palpable weight in the air between their two homes. Amina tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were just private people. Maybe they were wary of strangers. But deep down, a familiar ache settled in her chest. She had faced this before, in different cities and different contexts. The subtle shift in demeanor, the averted gazes, the unspoken questions in people's eyes. It was the quiet hum of prejudice, the insidious way Islamophobia manifested in polite society. It wasn't overt hatred, but a pervasive discomfort, a preconceived notion based on her appearance, her name, her faith. Her internal struggles were constant. There were days she wanted to retreat, to build her own walls, to stop trying. The loneliness for a woman who thrived on connection was profound. She missed the easy camaraderie of her old city neighborhood, the diverse tapestry of faces, the unspoken understanding that had allowed her to simply be. Here she felt perpetually under scrutiny, an outsider looking in. "Am I doing something wrong, Mama?" she'd ask her reflection in the bathroom mirror, her fingers tracing the soft fabric of her hijab. "Am I not friendly enough? Not American enough?" She knew it was absurd, but the insidious nature of microaggressions was that they made you question yourself, made you wonder if the problem lay with you, not with their prejudice. But then she'd look at Layla, her daughter's innocent face, her longing for playmates, and Amina would find her resolve. She had brought Layla here for a better life, and she wouldn't give up. She continued to wave, even when waves weren't returned. She left small gifts on porches during holidays, even when they were met with silence. She held on to her kindness like a shield, and her dignity like a beacon. One warm Tuesday morning, a month after they had moved in, Amina decided to take Layla to the local library. As they walked down their street, the sun already high in the sky, she noticed Mr. Baker's car pulling into his driveway. He got out, carrying a small grocery bag, and headed towards his front door. Amina offered a small, polite wave. As was her custom, Mr. Baker, as usual, offered no acknowledgement, his back stiff as he fumbled with his keys. Just as he reached his porch, a small figure darted out from behind his house, chasing a bright red ball. It was Caleb, the baker's 10-year-old son. Amina had seen him a few times, a quiet boy with sandy blonde hair, always engrossed in his own world. He was a little older than Layla, and Amina had often hoped their paths would cross, that perhaps a child's innocence could bridge the gap their parents had created. Caleb laughed, a joyful sound that carried clearly in the quiet morning air. As he chased the ball, he ran a few steps, then suddenly his laughter cut short. He stumbled, his arms flailing, and then, with a sickening thud, he collapsed onto the perfectly manicured lawn in front of his house. The red ball rolled harmlessly into the flower bed. Mr. Baker, who had just opened his front door, turned at the sound. He saw Caleb fall, and his face, usually so composed, contorted in a mask of confusion, then dawning horror. "Caleb?" he shouted, dropping his grocery bag, its contents scattering across the porch. He rushed towards his son, his movements clumsy with panic. Amina's nurse instincts, honed over years in emergency rooms and pediatric wards, kicked in instantly. It was a primal, immediate response, overriding everything else. Her mind, trained for crisis, assessed the situation in a fraction of a second. Sudden collapse, no movement. "Mama, what's wrong with him?" Layla whispered, clutching Amina's hand, her small face creased with worry. "Stay here, Habibti. Mama needs to help," Amina said, her voice calm despite the surge of adrenaline. She didn't wait. She didn't hesitate. She didn't consider the baker's coldness or the neighborhood's stares. A child was in distress. That was all that mattered. She sprinted across the lawn, her black dress swaying with her rapid movements. Mr. Baker was kneeling beside Caleb, his hands hovering uselessly, his face pale with terror. "Caleb, son, wake up. What's wrong?" he pleaded, shaking the boy gently. Mrs. Baker, alerted by her husband's shouts, rushed out of the house, a horrified scream tearing from her throat. "Caleb! Oh my God, Caleb!" Amina reached the boy, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. "Mr. Baker, is he breathing?" she asked, her voice firm, authoritative. Mr. Baker looked up, his eyes wide and unfocused with panic. He barely registered who was speaking. I don't know. He just fell. He's not moving." Amina didn't wait for permission. She knelt beside Caleb, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. She quickly checked his airway, his breathing. His pulse, nothing. His lips were turning blue. "He's not breathing," Amina stated, her voice cutting through the rising panic. "Call 911 immediately. Tell them a 10-year-old boy is unresponsive and not breathing." She looked directly at Mrs. Baker, whose face was a mask of frozen terror. "Mrs. Baker, go." Mrs. Baker, jolted by Amina's command, fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking so violently she could barely dial. Amina positioned Caleb carefully, tilting his head back, lifting his chin. Her years of training, the countless hours of practice, the lives she had seen hang by a thread, it all converged in this moment. She placed the heel of her hand on his chest, her other hand on top, interlacing her fingers. "I'm a nurse," she stated, more to herself than to the frantic parents, a quiet affirmation of her capabilities. "I'm starting CPR." She began compressions, strong and rhythmic, counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her movements were precise, powerful, a stark contrast to the chaos of the moment. Mr. Baker watched, mesmerized, his own helplessness a crushing weight. Mrs. Baker was on the phone, her voice a frantic, tearful whisper, relaying the information to the dispatcher. The neighborhood, drawn by the commotion, began to emerge. Doors opened. Heads peered out. Whispers started, then died, replaced by a horrified silence as they witnessed the unfolding tragedy. They saw Amina, her hijab slightly askew, her face grim with concentration, rhythmically pressing on the child's chest. They saw the Bakers, their faces etched with unimaginable terror. Amina continued the compressions, her muscles burning, her focus absolute. She leaned down, delivered 2 rescue breaths, then resumed compressions. Her mind was a tunnel vision, shutting out the fear, the onlookers, the years of coldness. There was only Caleb, his still form, and the desperate, urgent need to bring him back. 1 minute passed, then 2. It felt like an eternity. Sweat beaded on Amina's forehead, mingling with the water still dripping from her hair. Her breath hitched, but she pushed through the fatigue, the desperation. "Come on, Caleb, come on." And then a faint, almost imperceptible gasp. A tiny, ragged breath. Amina paused, her heart leaping. She checked his airway again. Another gasp, stronger this time. A cough. Caleb's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, but open. He was breathing. Faintly, shallowly, but he was breathing. A wave of profound relief washed over Amina, so powerful it almost buckled her knees. She sat back on her heels, her chest heaving, tears blurring her vision. "He's breathing," she choked out, her voice raw with emotion. "He's breathing." Mr. and Mrs. Baker collapsed onto the lawn beside their son, tears streaming down their faces, a mixture of profound relief and utter exhaustion. Mr. Baker reached out, his hand trembling, and gently touched Caleb's cheek. Mrs. Baker sobbed uncontrollably, clutching her son's hand. Just then, the wail of sirens grew louder, closer, finally pulling into the cul-de-sac. Paramedics, their faces grim and professional, rushed out of the ambulance, carrying their equipment. They quickly assessed Caleb, their movements swift and efficient. "What happened?" one asked, his eyes scanning the scene. "He collapsed, wasn't breathing," Amina explained, her voice still a little shaky. "I performed CPR." The paramedic nodded, his eyes widening slightly as he looked at Amina. Then back at Caleb. He checked the boy's pulse, his breathing. "Good work, ma'am. You saved his life. He's got a pulse," breathing shallowly. "We need to get him to the hospital now." As they carefully loaded Caleb onto a stretcher, securing him in the ambulance, Mr. Baker slowly rose. He turned to Amina, his face streaked with tears. His eyes, usually so cold, now filled with an overwhelming, raw gratitude. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He simply reached out, his hand trembling, and grasped Amina's arm, squeezing it tightly. It was a silent, desperate thank you, a profound acknowledgment of the life she had just saved. Mrs. Baker, still sobbing, nodded, her eyes fixed on Amina, a silent plea for forgiveness in their depths. The ambulance lights flashed, casting a surreal glow on the stunned faces of the neighbors. They had witnessed it all. The collapse, the panic, Amina's swift, decisive action, the miracle of life returning to a child's still form. And in that moment, the invisible barrier that had separated Amina from Willow Creek shattered into 1,000 pieces. The shift was immediate, palpable. The same people who had averted their gaze, who had whispered behind cupped hands, now approached her, their faces etched with a mixture of awe, shame, and profound gratitude. Mrs. Albright, the woman who had barely made eye contact when accepting cookies, was the first. She approached Amina, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice trembling. "Amina, Dr. Khalid, I don't know what to say. We saw it. You saved Caleb. Thank you. Thank you so much." Her words were punctuated by a tearful sniffle. "I'm so sorry for everything." Her gaze dropped, unable to meet Amina's eyes, a clear acknowledgment of her past coldness. Amina, still recovering from the adrenaline rush, simply nodded, a gentle smile on her face. "I'm just glad he's okay." Then came the young couple from across the street, their faces pale. We heard. We saw. We just wanted to say, we're so incredibly grateful, and we're so sorry if we ever made you feel unwelcome." The husband extended a hesitant hand, which Amina warmly shook. The apologies, tentative at first, then more forthright, poured in over the next few days. Neighbors brought over casseroles, flowers, cards. They stopped her on the street, not with wary stares, but with genuine smiles and heartfelt thanks. The whispers had changed. They were no longer about suspicion, but about admiration. "Did you hear? Amina, the new neighbor, saved Caleb Baker's life." The Bakers themselves underwent the most profound transformation. Caleb, thankfully, made a full recovery, a congenital heart condition discovered during his hospital stay that would now be managed. When he returned home, Mr. and Mrs. Baker came straight to Amina's door, their faces filled with an emotion so raw and powerful it transcended all past prejudice. "Amina," Mrs. Baker began, her voice thick with unshed tears, "there are no words. You gave us our son back. You are an angel." She reached out, her hands trembling, and gently clasped Amina's hands, squeezing them tightly. Mr. Baker, his eyes glistening, cleared his throat. We owe you everything, Amina, and we owe you an apology. A deep one. We were wrong. So wrong about you, about everything. Your kindness, your bravery. It's a lesson we'll never forget." His voice cracked with emotion. Amina looked at them, truly looked at them, and saw not the cold, suspicious neighbors, but two terrified parents, humbled and transformed by a shared moment of crisis. "You don't owe me anything," she said softly, her eyes filled with compassion. "I just did what any human being would do, what any nurse would do." But they insisted. They invited her and Layla over for dinner, a hesitant, almost shy invitation that quickly blossomed into genuine friendship. Mrs. Baker, once so aloof, now sought out Amina for coffee, for walks, for advice. Mr. Baker, who had once watched her with suspicion, now offered to help with yard work, his gruff exterior softened by profound gratitude. Their conversations were no longer strained silences, but easy exchanges filled with laughter and shared stories. They saw her, truly saw her, not as a Muslim woman in a hijab, but as Amina, the kind, brilliant, courageous neighbor who had saved their son. Layla, too, found her place. Caleb, once a distant figure, became her first true friend in Willow Creek. He'd come over, shy at first, then bursting with stories, eager to play. Soon other children followed. The swing set in the baker's yard, once a symbol of exclusion, now rang with the joyful sounds of Layla's laughter, mingling with Caleb's and the other neighborhood kids. Amina would watch them from her porch, her heart swelling with a quiet joy. The community slowly but surely began to embrace Amina as one of their own. She was invited to neighborhood potlucks, to school events, to book clubs. Her expertise as a nurse was sought out, her compassionate advice valued. The stares had vanished, replaced by warm smiles and genuine greetings. The whispers were now about her strength, her kindness, her undeniable place in their community. The hijab, once a perceived barrier, was now simply a part of Amina, a familiar and respected aspect of the woman who had shown them the true meaning of heroism. The journey had been long, marked by moments of profound loneliness and quiet resilience. Amina often reflected on how quickly things could spiral because of systemic prejudice, how easily assumptions based on appearance and religion could blind people to the true heart of another. She had moved to Willow Creek seeking peace, but had found a battle she hadn't anticipated, a battle against unspoken biases and ingrained fears. Yet, in the crucible of a life-or-death moment, those walls had crumbled. Caleb's collapse was a tragic event, but it had also been a profound catalyst. It had forced the neighborhood to look beyond their preconceived notions, to witness an act of selfless courage that transcended all differences. It had shown them that kindness knows no creed, and bravery wears many faces. Amina learned that redemption wasn't just for those who had erred, but also for those who had judged. The neighborhood, in its collective apology and embrace, was redeeming its own past biases. It was a testament to the transformative power of a single act of courage, a reminder that humanity, at its core, yearns for connection, for compassion, and for the recognition of shared vulnerability. She had come to Willow Creek as an outsider, judged by her appearance, her faith, her perceived otherness. But in saving a child, she had not only saved a life, but had also opened hearts, shattered prejudices, and woven herself irrevocably into the very fabric of the community. The quiet, conservative streets of Willow Creek had learned a powerful lesson that summer afternoon, that the true heart of a hero beats with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to humanity, regardless of what they wear or what they believe, and that, sometimes, it takes a crisis to reveal the profound truth hidden beneath the surface of judgment. So if you've made it this far, do one more thing. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that believes in the power of heart, hope, and humanity.